welcome to this webinar on using custom model templates in Advanced Steel. I hope you find it interesting. A little bit of introduction first. My name is Alex Giles. I started off trained as a mechanical design engineer around 30 years ago. Did mechanical design for around 10 years, and then because I was efficient with the CAD system, I moved sideways to be the CAD manager for that company, and therefore I've been doing CAD consultancy, training and user support for around 20 years now. The last 10 of those years I've focused entirely on Advanced Steel at Graitec. Why should you use Graitec as your business partner? Well, Graitec have staff and the services and the software to provide support to you throughout the entire life cycle of your product in your company. We like to split that into 4 areas. First of all, we have Graitec Create, where you would use Autodesk products and software to design your own products, and we have power packs from Graitec that enhance each of those. The power packs add lots of extra bells and whistles, functions to make you more efficient and more powerful to automate things that are beyond the standard package. The power packs are available for Revit, Inventor, Vault and Advanced Steel. If you haven't got the power pack yet, one of the handouts, if you look at the GoToWebinar sidebar, one of the handouts is a flyer on the power pack to tell you what sort of things the power pack includes for Advanced Steel. It's highly recommended you obtain that for yourself. The power pack is free of charge to anybody who's already a Graitec customer. After you've designed your product, you need to make sure it's going to work in the real world, so you need to do some analysis, and Graitec offer market-leading, state-of-the-art software to help you with that analysis, so you can analyze your designs fully and make sure they are going to work in the real world. Once you've got your finished design and your finished product ready to go, you need to manufacture it, so that comes into Graitec Fabricate. We have facilities there and software there to help manage your whole workshop throughout the manufacturing process. It can control all the documentation or the files or the NC files. You can feed them to your NC machines. You can translate them for different NC machines. You can do all the scheduling for your workshop, including scheduling the human workers, welders, and so on. And then once you've all those different processes and jobs will create massive amounts of data. So the last stage or the last portion is Graitec Manage, where we offer software that will help you manage all your work in progress data throughout your company and control your IP, make sure you're working with the latest versions and the accurate data and so on, and take care of all that data right up to the point where it leaves your company to go to an external data environment. So this particular webinars are based on Advanced Steel, and we do many webinars based on all of the different Autodesk products, and there's lots based on Advanced Steel. If you've missed any, then check out the Advanced Steel content portal, and you can click the link on here, download the handout for the PDF, and the links will be live in the PDF. And that content portal lists all the previous webinars we've done with links to recordings for all of them, so you can watch them at your leisure. There's lots of useful information there. Additionally, we have a blog where we frequently post new ideas every month or every few weeks. We're constantly trying to put up there different tips and tricks and ideas and thoughts on using Advanced Steel. A lot of support questions already have their answers on the blog. So if you click the link here, you can subscribe to the blog to get informed of any new posts that go up immediately. But also I highly recommend you check out all the existing posts, even going back a few years, because there's all sorts of useful information on there. Excuse me. Oh, didn't want to open the link. This webinar today, as I say, is the last of this current series of webinars. More will be scheduled very shortly. So if you click on the link there for the events page, you'll be able to take into a page which indexes all the upcoming webinars from Graitec UK, and you can register for any of the ones you find interesting. One huge event that's coming up shortly in June is the Graitec BIM Up Global Digital Conference. As you can see from the banner there, we're expecting over 200 classes this year. There was just under 200 last year, and they'll be split into all the different areas of our business. You can register for it now, even though the classes aren't listed. You can get your registration in early, make sure you're signed up and keep informed of any changes. It's completely free to attend for anybody, anywhere in the world. you're not committed to watching online for the whole 3 days. They're all individual classes, and you can dip in and out, watch any classes you wish, and ignore the others. If you miss it, you'll miss out on the opportunity to get lots of useful information across the whole gamut of products. So lots of languages, lots of classes, lots of languages. It was 9 different languages last year as well. So something for everybody in there. Make sure you don't miss it. Coming to this webinar then, this particular one, we're on the subject of using custom model templates in advanced steel. So I'm going to explain to you how to create and use your own model template. But why is a template such a good idea in the first place? What's it going to do for you? So we're going to include what's a template for, what is it doing, some basic rules you should keep in mind when you're playing with them. What's the benefit for you if you customize your template? And basically most of it's going to be all the ideas for things you can customize and can set up in your template to make your life more efficient. So what is the model template? Whenever you start a new model or new project in Advanced Steel, you would click on the File New command or something similar, and you should be asked or offered a list of templates to choose from. So here's a capture of my screen, and you can see I've got 3 there. So the template is the file you start your new model from. You should, if you haven't got anything else in there or you haven't consciously set up anything else, you should always use AS template DWT to start your new project. What is the template all about? Why should you use AS template? Well, the template sets up the system to suit the tasks at hand. And it's really important if you're going to be working efficiently in Advanced Steel, because with Advanced Steel, we have known people use other templates or other files as the basis for their models, and it's produced crashes and strange behavior left, right, and center. So although it's not necessarily obvious what the setting is, it's really important you use an improved Advanced Steel template at all times. Things that are set up inside the template would include how things look, cosmetic things. You can make things a lot more pleasing and easier on the eye. The layers that might be available to use, what units you're using. So customers in America obviously want to use English or imperial units. The rest of the world uses metric. That's controlled by your template. And also, a lot of commands store their settings and defaults inside the file, so you can set all those up in advance. That might not look like a long list, but wait until you see the full spread of what I'm suggesting you can set up in there. So there's a couple of things you should remember when you're going to be thinking about editing or creating your own template. Rule number 1, always start your model with AS template if you don't have your own custom template. Anything else will cause crashes. Your own custom template, if you make one, should always be started from AS template and edited and customized from there, so that it's a derivative, and that will then be an approved safe template to use. Rule number 2, never actually change the original AS template DWT, because that can cause all sorts of problems and hiccups. So what you need to do is copy that first and then edit your copy, or you could open it and make sure you do a save as immediately. So really important, you should always work on AS template or a derivative from that, never change the original one. So how do you make your own custom template? Well, the first thing you do is copy AS template. What I tend to do is I use the file open command, and then at the bottom you have to change it to say drawing template instead of drawing or AutoCAD drawing DWG. It should be the DWT, and then it jumps to the correct path where the templates are stored. Then you can select AS template DWT and open that, and immediately before you forget, do a save as and save it as something else. You can see I've called my one AG Alec Giles template 2020. Do not change the path. You must leave the new template in the same path that the original file was in, and then you're safe. Once you've done that save as, you can edit that file as much as you like. But just a little caveat, next time you go to a file open to open a drawing, it will still be looking for templates, so you might go to your drawing folder and oh, it's empty. Don't panic, you just have to remember to change that back to AutoCAD drawing DWG so that it shows the drawings, not the templates. So let's look at some things we can set up in the template. First of all, visual styles. Since AutoCAD 2017.1, Autodesk changed the graphics display system in AutoCAD to make it more efficient, and they call that Enhanced 3D. but that only works if you're following the right rules in the file. And unfortunately, the default template provided with Advanced Steel, at least in the UK build, does not follow those correct rules. So there's a blog post here, if you follow the link, where I've explained all the settings you need to change in the template file, or you can look it up in the Enhanced 3D on the online help for AutoCAD. But basically, you need to go to the Visual Style Manager and change a few settings inside there. So this is the Visual Style Manager. You go through each style in turn: 2D wireframe, shaded, realistic, shaded with edges, conceptual, and so on, and set the settings. Mainly, the main thing is, if you're showing edges, then you must have them shown in color by entity, but you also don't want hidden edge removal unless you have to. You can leave the hidden edges showing, because actually removing them slows things down. That will make a big difference to the performance of the graphics on your model. So zooming and rotating especially. This second post here, I did some tests on several of our largest models I had available, and it made a big difference on those, from having virtually nothing visible when you're rotating to having 95% of it visible when you're rotating at full speed. So it's a big difference, very important. Make sure your template follows the rules for Enhanced 3D. That's not going to make a huge difference to the cosmetics, but there are some things you can change for the cosmetics. First of all, the background color. And this is the standard UK. I'm always talking about the standard UK build here, but it is same things, principles apply to any of the builds for other countries. I don't like this dreary blue that's in the default. I find it a bit dull and depressing, and the contrast isn't very good with some of the other parts. So you can type in the command background and then play with the dialog box to change the colors to something more pleasing. I've lightened it up. And why do you want a wet, horrible, miserable day? I've changed it to a nice sunny sky blue, like you see here, much more cheerful. You can also set some materials and textures. In the standard template, then the beams are slightly transparent. I don't know if you can see in this image. You can just see here that the beams are transparent all the time for using the realistic mode, which is horrible, really. Doesn't work very well. So you can turn that off. And also, it doesn't actually slow down performance if you add a few textures, surprisingly. So on the concrete, you can see on this back wall here, I've added in a texture for the concrete, and I've got one on the bottom there as well, to make it look more like concrete rather than just a grey blob. So you can set those up, and it makes it much more pleasing for wood and concrete and so on. To get the materials, you can go to the materials library command, which is on the render ribbon, and you can find the materials you like. Just browse through the AutoCAD library, drag them into your parts in your model until you find one you like. Some work better than others, some don't really show the texture at all. But once you find ones you like, you can then use the material attach command. You have to type that in, and you can assign those materials you would like to different layers. So you can assign the concrete walls layer this material, concrete slabs layer the aggregate material, timber layer polished cherry or something, and you can have whatever you want for those different layers. And also remove the glass material from the standard beams layer, because that's what makes everything transparent when you don't really want it to be. So by setting those up, you can do a lot of good. Let's see if I can quickly show you that. So to get the materials, you can go to this render ribbon. Here's material browser, and you've got a big library here. And if I sort of there's my concrete, you can see I've got a texture on it. Let's just try and look for a different one for some fun. Let's go for the bigger previews. Try that one, just drag it on. No, it's not really worked very well. Let's try another one. Keep trying different ones until you find one that has a nice material. Not going to find one just to be annoying. And when you've got the right one you want, you can go for material attach. And you can see down here, you've got each layer listed, so I've assigned different materials to different layers to get what I want. So if I draw something or put a beam, I can just change this beam to the timber layer. Then you can see I've put a timber texture on there. Might seem trivial, but it's much nicer to look at your model when you can recognize immediately what things are. Having everything similar colors and dull shades is a bit depressing when you're working on it all the time. Still on the topic of cosmetics, you can set up your own layers. The layers are used for sorting things and controlling the display, but also affect how things look as well. So what you'll generally find, if you're drawing construction lines, then normally you should have the layer called standard as your current active layer, so that automatic layer management takes place. But then if you're drawing construction lines, they will come out on that layer called standard, and you can't turn them off. So that's a bit annoying. So I've created a layer which I've called construction, and I can move all those construction lines to that layer so I can turn them on and off without interfering with the standard layer. I've also created another layer for glass, because when you're modeling glass, you just use all the plate commands, and it will just end up on the plates layer looking like any other steel plate, which is a bit misleading and not very pleasing. So I've set a layer called glass, I've made it a very pale blue color, and I've set it to a transparency of 60%. So you can see there at the bottom, I've actually got my glass looks like glass, and I can see through it like glass, which is much more pleasing. You can also change the colors of other objects. I don't know why the beams are brown in the original template. It's not very realistic, a bit dull. So I've changed my beam layer to have a more of a steel grey color, which I find more satisfactory. I know other people like different things. Some use primary colors for everything. You can have anything you like. It's fine. It's up to you. Then, a fairly minor point, but still worth doing, is the point style. If you use the center of gravity and weight calculation command, or use the divide and measure command, they both place AutoCAD points at the interesting points. The trouble is, those points are minuscule little specks that you can't even see. Unless you know exactly where they are, you might just about be able to find them. But they're no good like that. So I recommend you type in the command ptype. Yes, here it is down here, ptype. So you can change the point style to something much more big and obvious. So again, just a very quick look. I go pick a few objects. 1, 2, 3, 4. Center of gravity. Right, well, where's the center of gravity then? No idea. But if I do ptype, instead of having this invisible speck, I can choose something nice and big and obvious. There it is. That's where the center of gravity of those 4 items was. So that's much more useful. So if you do that in your template, you haven't got to keep remembering the command and changing it every 2 minutes. And like we said, for the layers, I've created a layer called construction. I've got some construction, so I've made that an orange color. And I've got a layer I've called glass, which I've set to a nice pale color. And this column is transparency, so I've set that to 60%. So just for fun, I could change this to be glass. No, it doesn't work because it's a block. Let's change the beam to glass then. There you go, I can see through that beam. It looks like a nice bit of glass rather than looking like all the other steel plates. So these things, minor and subtle, and you might seem trivial, but overall they make a much more pleasing drawing to work in and model. You can see the difference between different things. You can instantly recognize what's glass instead of steel. You can instantly see the concrete's more pleasing. It just makes it better and nicer all around. After you get the cosmetics, then there are some things. I said some commands can store their settings in here and some data. So first of all, you got the project settings box. We all know we have to fill in the project settings for every project, because this information is used to fill in the title blocks on your drawings. But on your machine, you're the person who always does the drawing. So why not put your name in the detailer box and possibly in the designer box for the checked by as well? And you might be able to fill in the others. Or perhaps you have trouble remembering which box is for what, so you could write in drawn by, design, checked by, project title, and so on in the different boxes as prompts for what you should type in there next time. You can also set up saved queries. Even though you've got an empty file with no model in it, you can still set up the query. So, as I discussed in this morning's webinar, model roles are absolutely critical to assigning and getting the best possible drawings from Advanced Steel. So in every single job you ever do, you should be searching for objects with no model role, or the model role set to none, so that you can assign the correct model roles to them. So that search is something you have to do on every single job. You should set that up in your empty template file. And then on any new job you want, you don't have to set the search up again and again. You just click on the light bulb and you instantly see what parts need the model role assigning. There's other things you might want to search for as well. So depending on how you work, if you use lots and phases quite frequently, you can see in my picture here I've got a search for lot 1, lot 2 and no lot. You can search for materials, S355, S275, stainless steel, timber, or whatever. Plate thicknesses. You can search for stairs and railings by listing a whole load of different model roles that you want to include in the search. You can do all sorts of things, and they're in the model, in the Project Explorer, without you ever having to set them up again. They're done once and for all. So again, in here, here's my searches. I don't think I've got any lots and phases in here, but you can set that. And you've got the no model role. It doesn't matter that the model's empty. You can still set these up, do the new query, fill in the box, and set it all up accordingly. Commands that store their settings inside the drawing would include numbering settings. There's a few things you change in here. Perhaps you like to change the start number or the increment. Everybody should be choosing an appropriate post number method. So if you, even though your template file is empty, there's no parts in there, you can still run the numbering command, select all the options you prefer, and click apply and OK, and those settings will be remembered. So in any new project, you just have to click numbering, OK, numbering, OK. You don't have to keep setting all those settings every single time, because you might make mistakes. Also, you've got the NC settings. When you're creating NC files, there's these settings you can play with on the NC settings button. And the settings inside your file in this dialog box override the settings that are in defaults in management tools. So if you like to create them based on single parts, or you want to put NC1 instead of .nc on the end of the file name, set that up in here in your template file. And then again, that's remembered and you never have to set it again, unless you want something unusual. So it helps you aid this consistency. Another suggestion we have is cameras. It's pretty much a safe bet that in 99% of your jobs, you're going to want similar views, or at least a number of similar views. You're always going to want a plan view, an end view, a side view, a 3D view, probably a foundation view, or some others. It's good practice that you should always model something in your structure at 0, 0 in the universe. So you know your model is going to be near 0, 0, and you know you always want the same handful of views, even if you want lots more. So why not create a camera at 0, 0 for those standard views? So you can see in my picture here, I've got a cluster of cameras at 0, 0 in the universe for my foundation plan, an overall plan, a 3D view, a side view, and so on. They're already set up. I haven't got to go through setting up those properties on every single job ever again. They're done once in that template. I can always delete them if I don't want them, but it saves me having to set them all up over and over. So again, here's my template. I haven't used those cameras in this one. I've moved them around and done other things. But this model was based on that template. You can see it's much brighter. The model edges are the same color as the parts, so the 3D performance is better. I've got some textures assigned to things. You've got special layers. And I've got the saved searches. My NC settings are set how I like them, as are my numbering settings. So let's have a quick review. As we've seen, there's quite a lot of things you can set up in your template file. We can set the visual styles up. Make sure you follow enhanced 3D rules. Otherwise, you'll be dragging yourself down. You don't want to use 2D wireframe. You don't want to use conceptual ever again. Set up the enhanced 3D visual styles, and those two modes are actually the slowest modes, and you want to be using the other modes, which are better anyway. You can change your background color and your colors of the layers to make everything brighter and more pleasing, or easier to see what's going on for you. Maybe you want columns and beams one color and plates a different color. You can change those to red and green and blue and pink if you want to. You can also add materials and textures if you wish to do so. It doesn't cost anything. It's only going to take you a few minutes to sort through and find them. It just makes it that little bit nicer when you're working. With the layers, I've created some extra custom layers. so that I can put my construction lines on a construction layer and hide them later without having to interfere with the standard layer. And I've got a layer for glass, so when I move things to that layer, they look like glass and not like any other steel plate. The point style is an easy command to forget. In fact, that command p-type has changed 4 or 5 times over the years. So instead of having to keep remembering that command, just change the point style in your template to something usable instead of that invisible speck, and you won't have to worry about it again. And then you've got commands like project settings, numbering settings, and NC settings, where you can set up your favorites and your routine normal settings can be put in there once in the project template, model template, and you won't have to set them again. You should also think about some saved queries. Definitely you should have one for no model roles, or model role equals none. But we suggested some others like lotting and phasing, material, and so on that you can set up as saved queries to help you manage your project. They can all be set even though the file's empty, doesn't hurt, and they're just sat there in Project Explorer waiting for you in future. And the last thing we suggested was you could set up some cameras for your most common views, because most projects are going to need at least a handful of the same views in every single project. Combining all those things together saves you a lot of time and a lot of aggravation in each job you do in future. Ergonomics are important. Make clear contrast between things. If you're colorblind, you can change it away from colors you can't see clearly, and choose colors that you can distinguish clearly. So better contrast, more pleasing colors, easier on the eye, either brighter or softer, whatever you prefer. Much better for ergonomics and reduces eye strain and so on. The extra couple of layers make managing your model easier and keeps the display clean and tidy. And the other settings, those are things that might not take long, but take a few moments on every single job to do. So you're saving a few moments on every single model. And importantly, it ensures consistency because they're set once forever. You're not going to fumble and accidentally pick the next option in the list or tick the wrong box when you set them again on the next project. So every project will be consistent, reducing potential errors. So on the cosmetic side, at least, you can see the difference between the top and the bottom screen, how they look different. And I find the bottom one more pleasing. You might have your own preferences, of course, to do what you find more pleasing. But it's definitely a nicer way of working. And in things like visual styles, then the right settings also have an effect on the performance of the system to make it work much faster and rotate that much better. And the bigger your model, the more that will make a difference. So overall, using a custom model template is going to make your work more pleasant, more efficient, and more accurate. Who doesn't want that? Everybody needs those things. So it should be an automatic thing. It's a bit of a no-brainer. When you get an opportunity, take half an hour to set up your project template or model template that you can use for your future projects. Creating model templates like this is something that everybody should do, but it's also something that Graitec can do for you. Everybody should have basic training to find out how to use the system properly and to learn the ins and outs of it. There's many things we discussed this morning about drawing creation that aren't obvious. If you haven't done any training, you wouldn't know those things. So everybody should do basic training, but that's just the beginning of your journey and the beginning of the way to get the most efficient use of advanced steel. Don't think you stop there. The implementation would include things like a custom model template, setting up some more settings in the system and so on. But then also we can look further ahead, a few months down the line or whatever, at customizing your drawing styles, editing your databases, putting in more parts, special beams, special fasteners and so on, and other methods. So there's other things you can do. If you can't do those yourself or you don't want to do them yourself, they need a bit of learning, then you can ask Graitec to do them for you. And any investment you make with Graitec in doing those tasks for you, you might have to pay a few days consultancy, will pay back many times over in making your work more efficient and more accurate in future, reducing the editing you're doing on drawings, having the right things to hand quickly and easily in future. You'll easily get your money back on that. Okay, we've got plenty of time now for questions. I've seen the hand pop up a few times on the side panel. Let's see if I can find anybody with hands open, hands up, or any questions in the question panel. If you look at your sidebar, you've got a questions panel. And I'll see if I can. Can you check the PDF file for me? Okay, let's check my handout is the right handout. I apologize if it's the wrong one. Yeah, it was just the title page I had wrong. Who was this asking? Whoever it was asked them. Sorry, I can't see your name. It's not showing me the full line. Miss Jersey. I apologise for that. That was my mistake. I had the title page with the wrong title on, but it is the right PDF. So it's the correct content with the correct links and so on. Just the title was wrong. Anybody else have any other questions? Let's see if I can find whoever had their hands up. Anybody got their hands up in the attendees? No, it doesn't look like it. Okay, I'll just give you another moment or so. After this, I close this session. You should get a little survey. It's only 3 or 4 questions. Please do fill it in. It really helps us to be able to keep providing interesting and useful webinars for you. So in the end, you'll get the benefit if you spend a couple of minutes just filling in that for us, just to encourage us and give us some ideas of what you want to hear next. Okay, there doesn't seem to be any other questions forthcoming, so we'll close it there. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you found that useful and interesting. Certainly, I recommend every company, you should keep it one for the company, but every company should set up a custom model template for their use. Oh, is there another question last minute? How to include a common camera? Okay, let's just have another look at how to do a camera. In your empty template file, so if I did open, change to template, and choose my template, make sure the camera's layer is showing. There you go, I've got some cameras there at 0, 0 in the universe. Even though the file's empty, I can just set my UCS how I want it. And I can say create camera. I'll put it at 0, 0. And then I just fill in the properties I want there, and I've got another camera set up. So I'll get that nice, in this case, upside down view of the model every time in future. I won't actually save that. Can you get a video of this webinar? All the webinars are recorded. Earlier on, I gave you the link to the Content Center. That will list all the previous webinars. This webinar will appear on the Content Center in the next few days, so you can link to it there and watch the webinar recording as many times as you like. How do you set 0, 0, 0? From Jimit, 0, 0, there's world coordinates in every file. I'm sure if you're using Advanced Steel, you must be aware of world coordinates and user coordinates. So the world coordinates are always at 0, 0. That's fixed. It can never be changed. If you want to place a camera at 0, 0 in the empty file, when you do create camera or any command, create camera, it's asking for a locate point. You just type in 0, 0, 0, and it will put it at that position without you having to snap to anything or lock onto anything. Okay. Is that how can you start modeling a 0, 0 again? Anytime you want to. So if you start a grid, so I do new file, start with template. I want to start a grid, so I'll do the grid command. I just type 0, 0, start, and there you go, 12,500. And there's my grid, and that's a 0 in the universe. Or I could do a portal frame, use the portal frame command, or type 0, 0 for the first point, 8,000, 0 for the second point, and there's my portal frame. Bit slow, but there's my portal frame, and so on. So you can always find a way to start something. Whenever you want to pick 0, 0 in the universe, just type 0, 0, and it will do that. That's based on the current coordinates. So if you're using UCS and you've moved it somewhere else, then that'll be the 0, 0 of your current UCS. But so if in doubt, just click on the world coordinates button, the first icon on the UCS palette first, and that'll guarantee you on world coordinates. How can I include custom prototypes in a template? That's a different thing. The customer prototypes, you want different prototypes for different customers with their different company logos on the drawings, then that's a different question. You have to either define different drawing processes, or in fact look at our blogs on the blog page, and there is a blog there about how to use project-specific prototypes. So on every project you can have different prototypes. So if you go to Graitec Co UK, go to blogs, advanced steel. There's lots and lots and lots there, but I should be able to search for prototype. It doesn't like searching for me sometimes, but one of those might be a little bit old now. There is one in there if you scroll back a few pages for how to use project-specific prototypes. And there's a blog on the similar subject to what I've done today. So what have we got next? There you go. Page 2, how to use advanced steel project-specific prototypes. That will talk you through everything you need to know for setting those up. How do you get a top view on rafter drawings, as some don't have it? Well, that depends on the drawing style, Matthew. You can create your manual drawing if you want to, but the easiest way to do it, if I go back into here, if you want it, go back a step. We used to have it so that it would always create a top view on a rafter drawing when it felt it was necessary, and we had so many people complain, oh, I was doing too many top views, that we turned it off. But what you can do, go to Output, Document Manager, Drawing Process Manager, look under User, Detail Style Maps, General Assemblies. It says there, rafter. You'll also be saying 2012 rafter, but change that to 2012 rafter front top, and then it will have a top view whenever it needs one, automatically created for you, instead of having to manually create them using the Create Cut View tool. Questions coming thick and fast now. What's the next one? Does changing the layer of a plate or beam change how Advanced Steel sees the item? No. Advanced Steel couldn't actually care less what layer anything is on. It does the automatic layer management. If you stay on the layer standard, let me go away. I'm on the layer standard, then anything I draw, a beam goes on the layer beams, grids go on the layer grids, plates go on the layer plates, and so on. It just does that for convenience for you, so that you can see what's going on. You can see the difference between one item and another. They're not all the same color. But you can actually move anything you like to any layer you like without having any effect on Advanced Steel at all. So I could move these to the construction layer. I could set this to the glass layer. It doesn't change the properties of the part. It won't suddenly, putting on a glass layer doesn't tell it to make it out of glass on the bill of materials. That's all to do with what's inside the part. So this is still a steel plate, even though I've put it on the glass layer. It makes absolutely no difference to Advanced Steel what layer anything's on. It's just cosmetic to help you see what's going on when you're looking at your model. Because if your whole model's one color, you can't really tell what's happening. I hope that answers that question for you. If you have box type model, are we able to generate drawings with the help of cameras? A box type model. Yeah, could have certainly used cameras to create views of each side of the box, but I would use the model roll frame if you're on the UK build. I don't know if that's similar in other builds. But using the model roll frame on the UK build, we'll create a drawing, as you saw this morning, if you watched this morning's presentation, which has the front, top, and two end views every single time. It's always those same 4 views. So I would recommend trying that. If that's not there, then you could potentially use cameras to define the views you want, but then that's more like a general arrangement rather than assembly, so you don't get the same control over dimensioning and that. You would want to be using a assembly style really. You should never model in a glass layer, correct? Yeah, you always stay on the layer called standard. Make sure that's the current active layer at all times. And then after you've modeled the glass items, I would just select them and change the layer to glass. So as long as you change the layer after you've selected something, I can select that beam, and then I change the layer, whatever layer I pick in the drop down, it will go to that layer. Oh, didn't pick the right layer. But so I can put that on the layer grid 2. It's fine. I don't want to pick the layer with nothing selected, because then everything I draw will be on grid 2. So now let's go for a different one. Go for grid 3. If I've accidentally changed to the grid 3 layer, even if I draw beams, they're coming up on the grid 3 layer. That's not the way you want to do it. I would recommend you stay on the layer called standard at all times and just move the objects to the desired layer after you've created them. With previous versions, when double-clicking on a fabrication dimension, you could roll your mouse wheel and edit the dimension. In 2020, this doesn't work anymore. Not sure what you're editing, Matthew. If you want to change the type of dimension from absolute to relative and absolute, or to relative or whatever, it might work if you just clicked once on that list, so that list has the current focus, and then roll the mouse wheel. But if it's changed, it's changed. There's nothing I can do about that. I've never tried doing it the old way, I'm afraid. The functionality, all the options and functions are still there. It's just maybe they've changed the way the window behaves, so it's not got focus and doesn't scroll when you scroll the mouse wheel. Okay, I think I've got the bottom of the list. There's no more appearing. So I hope that's answered everybody's questions as best I can. Obviously, if you have support with the Graitec, you can send through any further questions to support.uk@graitec.com, and we'll deal with them there. Okay, I hope you found everything interesting and can benefit from that. Have fun making your own templates. I'm going to close the webinar now. Thank you very much.